Greed. The real reason we're saddled with dozens of providers of TV, movies, and video games. Publishers and producers have figured out they can make more money by removing their content from venerable providers like Netflix and Steam, replacing decades of experience and services with their often inferior lockers such as Disney Plus and Ubisoft Connect. On one hand, you can say competition is healthy, but having every company independently picking your pocket every month or dragging you through complicated installs that frequently break, that's not healthy for consumers either. In today's video, we're going to demystify the video gaming digital lockers, often called launchers, and explain the complicated mess they truly are on the Steam Deck. Stick around. Welcome to the world of digital lockers, where seemingly every third-party developer wants to avoid paying Steam a share of your game purchases and force you to use some often draconian launcher to play your game. Digital lockers, as they pertain to Steam Deck, are even more complicated than the Windows PC counterparts, because these third-party lockers are not in toto supported by the Steam Deck. In this video, we're going to pick on Ubisoft a lot because, well, we need a face of horror, and they win this time. But understand this pertains to pretty much all lockers out there, and when I say Ubisoft, I'm using that as a generic term for these lockers. There are two main ways to use third-party lockers on the Steam Deck. One is to install the locker as a separate application, either via some script or manually as a non-Steam game. In this case, it's very similar to Windows in that this locker is a standalone entity, and it serves as a repository of all the games that you buy and own from that company. If you bought your Assassin's Creed games from Ubisoft Connect, the standalone locker will launch, update, and otherwise give you access to the game and its DLC you purchased there. You can add these to Steam to launch them, but there's a lot of negatives to this approach, and we'll cover those in a minute. The other way is a partial solution, that is, buy the Steam copies of these games, which builds the digital locker into the installation. Steam is the launcher, Ubisoft is the locker, and your game's entitlement is attached to Steam, not to Ubisoft. This will become more clear in a moment, but let's call these tween lockers because they sit between Steam and your game. Of course, not all games from third-party publishers are available on Steam. Many are locked exclusively behind their third-party launchers initially, a year or even forever. Totally inconvenient for the Steam Deck user that just wants to play the damn games. So we know some games are exclusively locked out of Steam. We know some third-party launchers are available on both the locker in question as well as on Steam using that tween launcher. Where should you buy? What are the pluses and minuses of each? Well, I'm glad I asked that question. The pluses and minuses can be categorized by some top-level concepts: price, availability, support, and complexity. There are a few other outliers, but let's start with these. Price. Of concern to all consumers is, how can I get the game as cheap as possible? Bottom line is that Ubisoft makes 30% more money when you buy the game from their Ubisoft Connect locker than when you buy it from Steam. That means they can actually offer the same game for 25% less than it is on Steam and still make 5% more profit than if you bought it from Steam. To them, that's worth more than 5%. That locks you into their platform, forcing you to look at their storefront, lock you into their DLC purchases. Even if they discounted the game 35%, essentially losing money on the deal compared to Steam, they're hoping to make up for it later. This is why you see gray market key stores selling Ubisoft keys for games at steep discounts while they sell Steam keys at the MSRP price of Steam. I'm not 100% sure that Ubisoft themselves aren't providing the keys to these marketplaces simply to ensure your fealty to their digital locker. Sure, Steam sales can often align with Ubisoft Connect deals and prices, providing the game is even available on Steam, but 9 times out of 10, if you want the cheapest price possible, the standalone Ubisoft Connect path is going to be the lowest. Availability. Pretty easy concept. Is the Ubisoft game you want even on Steam? Probably not, especially if it's new. They're hoping if they lock the game out of Steam long enough, you'll cave in and buy it from them, where they get that 30% bonus and they still get your eyeballs for ads and your commitment to only buying DLC from them. It is pretty much guaranteed that every Ubisoft game in the last 10 years is on Ubisoft Connect, and that a small percentage of them are available on Steam. So, once again, Ubisoft wins. Support. Now, here's where you really need to pay attention. Ubisoft doesn't have a Linux client for their digital locker. That means, unless you're running Windows on your deck, and for this video, we'll assume that you are not, Ubisoft is not going to care or help you if you cannot run the $80 game you just bought from Ubisoft Connect on your deck. Their client is for Windows, they will say. If you're not running it on Windows, we can't and won't help you. Steam Tween Locker purchases, on the other hand, are supported by Steam, not Ubisoft. When you buy Assassin's Creed Origins from Steam, and it doesn't work, Steam isn't getting their 30% because you're going to refund it. If something goes wrong with Ubisoft Connect's Tween Locker, they're on the hook to support it with their help desk. They are the ones that are going to get slammed for any issues. Simply put, Steam has a vested interest if you buy a Ubisoft game on the Steam Deck via Steam. Ubisoft has no vested interest. First, they lost 30% of the sale, and two, you're not using Windows. They will shine you on if you ask for help. Buying third-party games on Steam doesn't get rid of that locker or a need for an account on those platforms, but it is sure nice to know that Steam will be leveraging their skills and knowledge to mitigate these game issues and get the tween launchers working again. Complexity, or what does it take to run the games from these third-party publishers on deck? Now, you've probably figured out by now that buying games on Steam and having them handle all the locker tomfoolery is the least amount of complexity required. On the other hand, third-party standalone lockers are 100% not supported by anyone. That's right, Steam isn't going to help you install Ubisoft Connect as a non-Steam game, nor are they going to help you get it working when Ubisoft breaks it for the umpteenth time. You're on your own. Ubisoft is going to laugh in your face when you ask them for help. Now, there's a myriad of ways to get Ubisoft Connect, the standalone locker, on your deck, and I've covered most of them here on this channel. All of them have some level of complexity requiring you use a real keyboard to sign in, require you flip Proton versions like extras in a John Wick movie, and the list goes on and on. What's more, they require you actually know something about what's going on, how Proton works, how to find Proton prefixes, dealing with the oddities of how prefixes and installations work. Some people love to know stuff, but I assure you, most people don't buy Steam Decks to learn how Proton works or how to look up the compat data folder of a non-Steam game. They bought one to use it like a console. Buy a game, install it, and play it. No hokey pokey. So that leaves us with the little stuff, like getting Steam achievements when you buy from Steam, getting pre-built shader caches when you buy from Steam, that sort of thing. Bottom line, buying from Steam makes sense in every concept outside of price and availability, and both are usually solved by time and a little waiting. Let's answer a few questions from our studio audience. If I buy the game in one place, like Steam, can I play it in another place, like Ubisoft Connect? Now, if you've been paying attention at all so far, the answer should be pretty plain. What would either Steam or Ubisoft gain by letting you play the game you bought from the other locker? Nothing. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense, as my dad said. Now, if you bought it on Steam, it may show up in Ubisoft's locker, but you can't play it from there. It will force Steam to run because that is where you're entitled to play it. If I double dip on Steam to buy a game and I have DLC I purchased on the other locker, does the DLC carry over? Great question. The answer is maybe. Depends on the game and the locker. Some people have reported that DLC from certain games have showed up. Others report that it doesn't. This is a case-by-case basis, and if it's important to you, don't exceed the 2 hours/2 weeks refund window on the Steam purchase without verifying that the content you want has come over. Does either purchase guarantee offline play? My Ubisoft games won't play offline. If I rebuy them on Steam, will offline mode work properly? Nope, that factor isn't controlled by Steam, but rather the Tween Locker itself. If Ubisoft Connect allows it, the Tween Locker will allow it. If not, buying it on Steam isn't going to help you. Does buying the third-party game from Steam get me out of having to have an account with the publisher? Usually not. There are some exceptions, but just assume if you buy a Ubisoft or EA or any third-party Tween Locker game, you're going to be required to sign up and or have an account with that publisher. Is it true if I buy third-party Tween Locker games from Steam that every install gets its own copy of the locker? Is there any way around that? I only have a 64 gigabyte Steam Deck. Actually, you got a 46 gigabyte Steam Deck. But I digress. The answer is yes. Every EA or Ubisoft or whatever game gets its own copy of the locker installed with it. Now, this is actually a feature, allowing every game to have the ability to run different protons, get different patches and requisites to keep the game functional. Now, most tween lockers clock in at about 300 megabytes anyway, so it's not like it's gulping up a bunch of space. Much like shader caches, this feature is only a problem for those who won't upgrade their internal SSDs. Personally, I've waited for bargain bin sales and repurchased all my third-party locker content from Red Dead Redemption 2 to Assassin's Creed Origins on Steam. I'd wait patiently for Assassin's Creed Mirage to come to Steam, and it will eventually. I'm in no big hurry. Probably be cheaper when it comes too. Now, this isn't the answer for everyone, but I love having a one-stop locker like Steam. I simply won't buy stuff on other lockers anymore. If the game isn't on Steam, I really don't need it. As always, your mileage may vary. As I've said in many videos, third-party lockers are an endless game of cat and mouse, even when they are grossly integrated into the Steam application. What works today may not work tomorrow. The very nature of fixing them can cause you to lose save game data or other important information. Hopefully with this video under your belt, you can make better decisions how, or even if, you should support games that force third-party lockers into your life. I'm Shane R. Monroe. Like, subscribe, of course, hit the bell. Whether you agree with me or not, I'd love your comments on this video. As always, I appreciate watching. We'll see you next time, and take care.